stay close. Cabot to all fighters. Align on Vector 3-9er.
So Thursday, end of the show, I've got one last appointment. I've seen a bunch of Morpheus stuff the day before. I've seen some Halo, got to play For Honor. And my last appointment is with Oculus. Don't really have any idea what to expect. I just have an appointment booked. Not in the booth. It's upstairs in the meeting room.
Whoa.
The backdoor shady deal.
Backdoor shady meeting
Hubert
room.
is talking about.
Sketch.
So kind of like it basically was kind of classy looking in there. It's like set up like an office
course.
space.
Absolutely.
Like little
Facebook money.
little
Yeah.
demo rooms and like some seating area in the middle.
Grease some palms. Gotta have an impact.
So anyway, so it was like, I think it was like 4 o'clock appointment, and like the show was supposed to close at 5. So I get into the room, and they sit me down with the new headset, which is like really nice. It's got like a soft like cloth lining and everything, and just like it feels like a final product now. It feels like a real deal thing. And I and then they put it on me, and there's like they've got like 8 demos there. So I'm like, okay, there's no way. Like I'm gonna play 3 of these, right? Like at best, because they have this other demo that what they want me to do later, and actually, believe it or not, they had me do all 8 because of like something else running behind. Like I kept doing like I finished one, and then it was like, okay, you want to try another one? I'm like, am I running out of time? I don't want to run out of time. I don't want to miss this thing. But anyway, so I got to try out a lot of different things. Interestingly enough, the stuff that they demoed, a lot of it was not first person. They did a lot of third person, normal, action-y type of stuff.
Like what?
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to ask you about that.
So the first one was called Chronos, and I would say it was, trying to be along the lines of kind of a God of War or Dark Souls kind of thing. And so like, I walked into the building. Well, first they had me look up because like you could just like look and see how high like the outside of this area was and that kind of thing. And you just look around, look behind you, all of that. And you walk in and there's like this big like giant just sitting on the floor. And then there's like a chain to open up a gate. So you like open up the gate and the noise wakes up the giant. So you got to run in and then you're like hacking and slashing against some guys. But like the whole time, it's interesting because it's like fixed camera angle, but then you can look around.
Whoa.
So
What controller were you using?
they was using the Xbox One controller because remember the week before they kind of said that's going to be shipping with it.
So you are just looking down on your character.
Yeah, it's I mean, kind of again like thinking like a God of War fixed perspective. Like there's a one part where it's interesting where like I went down a staircase, and so it's like you went down, but then like when you got to like going down the stairs, you actually had to like look down and like follow your character because the rest of the positioning wasn't going to move.
So anytime I think of VR, I usually think of first person because it's about being inside of that game world, taking that to the next level. Do you think, because you just played like a third person action game, do you think there is a market for that? Do you think these third person action games are going to benefit from Oculus, from VR?
I think there's still like a level of like, even though it doesn't feel like this is me doing this stuff, I think there's still a level of like being in that world and looking around and catching things that you maybe wouldn't have noticed, or you're just like more involved in that space. The next one I saw was probably even better about that. It's an Insomniac's game. It's called Edge of Nowhere, and the best way I could describe it would be like if you got like a mix of like Uncharted and Resistance. So you're kind
I like
of
the sound of that.
Yeah, you're kind of climbing over stuff. There's like suspension bridges and it's like snowy. You're an explorer type of thing, but then you just start getting chased by these like bug monsters and stuff. And then there's one point where I was like walking across like a narrow bridge across a ravine, and then you just hear this like stomping, and you look up and there's this huge monster. It's like over your head. It's just like, and he just steps across the ravine, It's just
so
like it's not a thing. It's just get over. There's a hole in the road.
is there a
I
weapon wheel?
love this.
That one was interesting because there wasn't any shooting involved. It was just about like the kind of the running and jumping platforming type of Uncharted type of thing.
The biggest thing, when you talk about VR, it's so one of those things you have to try it and you can't hear about it.
Right.
But really, tell me what that was like when this giant walked over you. What does that feel like?
It's crazy. It's intense. You know, it's a different thing because it's like you get a better sense of scale, I think, out of that. And yeah, I think that was. I mean, I think they said that this for a lot of people, like that was one of the more impressive things because it felt like a real game, you know. And I think that, you know, that's something that a lot of the other demos still haven't come across as feeling like a real game.
They're more
and
like tech demo style.
Like Chronos, you know, like that was kind of cool, but at the same time, like being able to like swing and actually hit your target felt kind of clunky. You know, it's like, can I get a lock-on system here in this game?
Yeah.
You know, and so it was really hard, just like mechanically, because you are from this fixed perspective, and like, okay, where am I in relation to the enemy? And it's like swing and a miss, and then you get hit. The next one I saw was one of the ones that people have been. It's also more of a complete game. Is Eve Valkyrie, and it's pretty freaking sweet.
You're in a ship, right?
Yeah, you're in the cockpit of a ship.
First person, finally.
First person.
Came back to first
One
person.
of the funny things about this is that, like you look down at yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm a woman. Okay. But it was really cool because, you know, you're able to, like, you know, kind of control and aim, you know, just by looking around. You can look around the whole cockpit, and so you're kind of, your controls are kind of freed up in a way in terms of like what you're doing on the controller, and it's, you know, it's space. So you got full 360-degree movement. You know, you're spinning around trying to keep track of your targets. You forget which way is up. There's this huge battle going on around you and everything.
It's incredible when your head kind of can become part of it and become part of the game and the world. Like, I had the benefit, my buddy played Deus Ex Human Revolution on three monitors in 3D. So to look down an alleyway, he would just turn his head, and just that simple motion of being able to look around with your head is the next step of immersion.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like all of these had, like, even there's another one I did that was Hero Bound, that was kind of, it was basically like a Zelda game, like really kind of like simple blocky world layouts. But when you pulled out your bow and arrow, like, even though it was in third person with the little guy on the screen, like, you aimed by looking at the target. You know, so it was like if I'm staring right at the target and then let go of the arrow and you hit the target that way.
Yeah. No, be more specific. So I'm pressing a button to...
So you push the button to like pull your arrow.
Okay.
And then, you know, and then like wherever you look, like the little red dot's at, and like you get it onto that switch or whatever to open the door.
And then you release X.
And you release,
Very cool.
And then
can you imagine like super competitive shooters as well, VR?
Well, Riggs was like that on the Morpheus.
Yeah, just like turning on someone.
Yeah, I'm worried about everyone's necks.
So Hero Bound was another one. That was all right.
What'd you do besides shoot arrows in Hero Bound?
Again, it was kind of like, you know, like Zelda style, like fought some minor enemies. Like I said, opened up some doors. There was like a boss battle with like that kind of mechanic where. So what you do is you shot an arrow to like have these spikes pop out of the wall, and then you'd get the boss to like start gearing up to rush you, and then you like dodge out of the way so it would smash into the spikes.
Cal, is this something you would be interested in? If Nintendo came out and said, hey, the new Zelda is going to be VR, would you be whoa, or would you embrace it?
I'd be so there.
Nice. Especially if they use, like, that's what I want to see, is using the VR to solve puzzles.
Yeah.
You know, like 3D style interactive puzzles.
The next one I played was a puzzle game.
There it is.
All right.
So this was like, it was called
At least
Esper, And it was set up pretty neat because the whole idea was that like it felt like you're in like some kind of like film noir detective office
Awesome.
Whoa.
kind of thing, but it's like you're a candidate for like telepathy.
Whoa.
All right.
And
I'm sorry, I have to ask at the beginning of each of these whether it's first person or third person.
this
now.
one is first person.
Okay, cool.
And so you're just sitting at this desk, and so like the first thing they have you do is like pick up a Rubik's Cube and just put it on a switch. So you like look at the Rubik's Cube,
Press X.
and then I think you push a button to like actually pick it up, and then move over and stick it on the thing.
Okay,
And then I think you did forward and back with the analog stick.
cool.
And then what they did is they pulled out like these like pneumatic tubes, like the things that shoot at the bank or whatever,
Yeah.
like these glass tubes. And so
It's
you
the
were doing
movie
all
Brazil.
of. So what's that?
Sorry, it made me think of Brazil
I'm
for a second.
shocked you've seen that movie, Kyle.
It's a weird one to pull out.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so you're putting a thing in the tubes?
Yeah, so you're doing these things where you're like moving stuff around the tubes, and then sometimes there'd be like parts of the tubes that were like covered up, because that was the idea, was that like if you couldn't see it, then it would like block your telepathy. So the like, parts of the tube were glass, but then other parts weren't, and so you'd have to move things around, and they just had all these different puzzles with like tubes, and there was like a glass cube at one point that you kind of had to figure out how to move, and it was a puzzle game. But again, you're doing all of this stuff just by looking around, moving your head, and controlling things with your mind.
Awesome.
Do you feel like this will be a real game?
I think it could be.
Okay.
I'm not sure where it would go. Like you would think that would be more of a tutorial, like while you're in the office, and then they would do something else later.
Do you think there's an advantage to Morpheus being able to use the PlayStation Move controllers to directly interact with the environment with your hands? Were you
Wait,
ever?
Hang on.
He's
We'll
got
get to
something
the-
for
we
that.
got the
He's
finale
got something
coming.
for
We
that.
got
The
the
finale.
finale
Okay.
Okay, so I'll go through a couple of these others real quick that were not as interesting to me. So there's Damage Core, which was like a sniper game.
Sounds awesome.
Love sniper games.
First person or third person?
It was first person, but it actually wasn't a very good game.
Oh, okay.
We'll just leave it at that. It
Bro,
was like
show
having
that
a hard
one.
time like figuring out like how to find my targets and focusing on my targets, and like it was a little clunky. Air Mech Arena, the graphics weren't that great, but the idea of it was pretty cool, because it was like you're looking at it from first person, but it was like a big tabletop game. And so like if you imagine like real-time strategy, but this enormous tabletop that stretches out so far that you can't see all of it at once. So you're like grabbing like units and placing them in different places, and you're trying to protect
Yes.
from these guys coming in, but
Yeah.
over here there's something else happening, and so you've got to constantly like look around.
How
This is
far can I
amazing.
zoom in?
You couldn't actually zoom in on
Oh,
that.
that's interesting.
So, but it was like a big table laid out like all around you.
Yeah.
So, you're looking over here, and this is happening, and then you got to move units, shift units over this way, and like a lot of like the.
That's some good
My
stuff.
head just exploded.
That's some
I'm
good
imagining
stuff.
like Hand of Fate with the cards and everything, but then when you go into the battle, it's like first person, you're fighting. So it's like you come out and it's just, oh my god. Okay, sorry.
So that was kind of neat. I did another one. It ended up being the last one that I did was this hockey one, where like you were the goalie, and you had to keep your eye on the puck. And like if you had your focus on it well enough, like it would like highlight green a little bit, but it wasn't very overt, so it was still hard to keep track. And then again, since it was using the Xbox One controller, you would use either the left trigger or right trigger. Like when it would come at you, you'd have to like, okay, is it going to come this way or that way? And you'd have to react in time to swat it back. And then that was the hard part. It's like after you swatted it back, it's like, okay, where did it go? Like try to find the puck again. So a little simple sports mini game. I think that's going to be like in a collection of sports mini games or whatever.
Cool.
You know what gets me real pumped about that table one is spectating.
Yeah.
Like watching someone else's fight.
Yeah.
You can just go watch from any angle.
So rad.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And then I played a little bit of Lucky's Tale, which is just a little
yeah.
3D
I've seen
platformer
that,
like
yeah.
Mario.
That one's third person, yeah?
That one's third person, yeah. And so again, that kind of thing is interesting because you're used to seeing everything in front of you, just like very focused. But like here is like, okay, if I look this way, there's something over there, or some like little item over there that you might have missed. And so I think it kind of opens up a lot more of the sense of exploration, because it's like you really have to like look around your environment like physically.
Yeah.
So anyways, so I did all of those demos, which I think were like the more normal demos, and I was just like, man, what's going on? What's things wrong? So then I get out of this thing. Palmer Luckey is right there.
And so
Has been staring at you this whole time.
I don't know if even
just like right in front of his face.
He comes in the room.
How's he
And he's
reacting?
like,
Does he
and
like
he
it?
just like starts talking to me and like starts asking me all these questions, and like I ask him questions about stuff that they did with the glasses and focus and things like that, because like some of the things like the Virtual Boy, like they used to have like focus styles and that kind of thing. And one of the things he said is like, number one, like unless you're an optometrist, you have a chance of getting that wrong and then giving yourself like headaches and motion sickness and stuff like that. And then number two is it's like, people that need corrective lenses need them for all kinds of other situations. And so like there's not necessarily like a one size fits all, like that focus style might not even, be the right thing for certain problems.
And so he's CEO of Oculus?
I don't know his exact like title, but he's basically like the main like, creative director. Yeah.
Awesome.
So anyway, so then he takes me over to the other room.
The other room.
Yeah.
This is the back door shady deals.
So this is where I get.
This is a palm grease.
This is where I get to try the Oculus Touch. Have you seen these? These controllers.
Yeah.
They're like nunchucks in each of your hand, but then they've got the
There we
circle
go.
thing around them.
Yeah.
So I get in this room, they put the headset on me again. I'm standing up on like a little square mat, and they put the controllers in my hand. And so what it was, so like they've got the two triggers. So the top one is just like a normal trigger like you would use for a gun or whatever.
Sure.
The second one is used to like, basically you make fists. So you squeeze that trigger, you make fists, and that's how you can pick things up. And then however it works, I don't know how, it can sense when you put your thumbs up or stick your fingers out. Like you're pointing. And this was like kind of binary, so it's like if I moved my thumb just a little bit, it would just pop up.
Okay.
But so it was really interesting. So there I am, and like I've got my hands floating out in front of me, and then Palmer shows up in the room with me, but not in the room with me, but in the virtual room.
In the game
with
room.
me. Yeah.
Whoa.
Like Tron style.
So he's there with me. He's talking to me, and then we've got like this, and it's fairly simple because it's more of just a demo than a real game. But he's got this table laid out with all this stuff. So there's like toy robots and like pop guns and like just like a bunch of building blocks and stuff like that. And so he's like, okay, just try picking up a block. And he's like, okay, you do that, and I pick it up and move it around and toss it or whatever.
And you do that by the L2 basically, the squeezing. Cool.
And then it's like, okay, we're gonna pick this thing up together. So remember, he's not actually in the room with me; he's somewhere else. And so like, this like stack of blocks, and like we just kind of slowly pick it up so that we like don't drop as many blocks. Try not to drop as many blocks as we can. We pick it up in tandem, and then we just start doing all this kind of stuff. He does some like low gravity stuff, and then we do like, he gets out like this like lighters, and like he flips open the lighter. And we like get sparklers, and like, okay, sparklers, and then we get Roman candles, and we're starting like blasting each other with Roman candles. And it's like, okay, here's an M80. And it was like, what? You're like, hold it next to that wall. I'm like, okay, you wouldn't do this in real life. And like a boat blows up, and your hand's fine, but the wall blows apart.
How do you move around in this world?
Well, it wasn't about, like, we were kind of stationary. It was just about grabbing things that were in the space.
And when you hear
but
Palmer,
I mean, I could turn this way and like, because there were times where he would stand next to me and we would like hand stuff to me.
Yeah.
And there were times where he'd stand across from me. And then like pick up a gun and do like a little shooting gallery thing. He'd start throwing boomerangs in the air and I'd shoot them.
This is incredible.
This is really weird.
Yeah. And one cool crazy part was he had like these remote control tanks, and then to control the remote control tanks, we picked up a controller. Mm-hmm. So like I have a controller in my hand in real life, but I go over and pick up a virtual controller. So it looks just like the thing that's in my hand. Mm-hmm. And then like I start moving the analog stick, and the analog stick's moving in the space.
What did his avatar look like?
So it was just very simple. It was like, just like blue hands and a blue face.
Okay.
It wasn't anything elaborate like that, but because I had a focal point to be able to look at him and I could hear him, it was like we were in that space together.
Yeah.
And I think that's really like what I walk away from is like the whole thing felt amazing because you were in there with somebody else.
You're feeling
You
human
feel
emotion.
like you're in a real
Exactly.
place, and I think that's sort of the thing of, where this can go is like, it's the next level of Skype or FaceTime or whatever. It's like you were there with whoever else, and you're just hanging out, doing whatever.
Yeah.
I think there will be a moment. It's been such a big thing for so long, but it's still so early. VR.
Yeah.
I think it just needs some more time, but I'm hoping that it gets to a point where it just everything clicks and everyone is like, oh my god.
But
This is real,
I think
this is
that's the
happening, this
thing
is the
to me
future.
though, is with this demo especially, that okay, graphically it wasn't anything to point a stick at, but it felt like I was there. Like I didn't have it was a little weird at first to get used to grabbing things, but after that it was just natural. It was like, okay, we're gonna grab this, we're gonna pick this up, we're gonna toss this.
Do you think that's much better than using a controller?
Yes. And I kind of felt the same way, like you were saying with the move the
Yeah.
day before.
Yeah.
Grabbing things,
It
that
adds
motion
so
makes
much.
so much difference.
Yeah.
So it's
The Viking one on Project Morpheus, you grab swords. You have 2 move controllers.
that demo last
and you
year.
grab a sword from the rack or grab an axe, and just that simple act instead of using a controller, just you're there.
Yeah. It's weird that these, what are they called?
It's called the Oculus Touch.
The touch. It's weird that the touch isn't, the primary thing they're pushing.
Yeah, I don't know that that's going to be out at launch. It doesn't sound
okay.
like it.
Okay.
But I think too, like you can't just make a game compatible with that.
Yeah.
You have to make something that's completely revolves around that experience.
Yeah.
So maybe people will, do stuff that works on Morpheus and Oculus, that will be multi-platform, but either use move controllers or the touch. But even so, the move controller doesn't have an analog stick on it. So there's going to be some really specific uses. But I think that like it was like being in like the magician's laboratory. It was crazy, and I think especially because he was the one doing the demo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just like it's like he's a huge kid in a playroom.
What does he talk like?
He was just always excited. I mean, it's like being with Huber. Like if Huber had made this thing, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, here,
I'd
let me
scare
show you
people
this,
away.
let me show that.
Yeah, they're like, whoa.
It's just like let me show you all the cool things this can do. So it's very very awesome way to end off my E3 show floor experience,
Cool.
which also went half an hour after the show floor closed.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Worth
Because
it,
he's
though,
just
man.
jazzed about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it too. That like I spent over an hour, between both demos in the Oculus, and I didn't have any kind of motion sickness or headache or anything. I was fine.
Cool.
Good news.
Good news.
Thanks, Blood.